Welcome to Evening Whispers of Love. This story is the classic girl wants to get out of her hometown. We meet Lily, a girl just wanting to follow her dreams, but family obligations and pressures hold her back. But when she falls in love, what will she do? Sit back, relax and listen to Lily in New York City. Chapter 1: Lily Under Pressure. Lily Oliver wiped her hands on her apron, leaving faint streaks of flour across the already faded fabric. Morning light slanted through the market windows, catching dust in the air and the edges of stacked produce. She'd been up since before dawn, same as always, sorting crates, checking the ledger, keeping the place running while her parents bustled in and out of the kitchen. She moved quickly, efficiently, but her mind was somewhere far beyond the brick walls and clattering trolleys of New York. Somewhere with open sky. Somewhere with dirt she could actually claim as her own. The bell over the door chimed. Victor Harrington stepped inside like he owned the sunlight that followed him. Tall, polished, dressed in a coat that cost more than a month of the market's rent. He smiled the moment he saw her, too wide, too eager. "Good morning, Lily," he said, leaning on the counter as if it were a parlor sofa. "You're working hard as always." She forced a polite nod. "Market doesn't run itself." "I admire that about you," he said, lowering his voice as though sharing a secret. "Your dedication, your strength. It's inspiring." She busied herself with a basket of potatoes so she wouldn't have to meet his eyes. His compliments always felt like hands reaching for her, soft, insistent, unwelcome. Victor didn't seem to notice her discomfort. He never did. "I was thinking," he continued, "perhaps I could take you to dinner tonight? There's a new place on Fifth. My mother would be delighted to see you again." Lily kept her expression neutral. "I'll be working late." "You always are." He laughed lightly as if that were charming. "One day I'll convince you to take a night off." She didn't answer. He took her silence as shyness, not refusal. "Well," he said, straightening his coat, "I won't keep you. But do think about it, won't you?" He gave her a hopeful smile before stepping back out into the street. The bell jingled behind him. Her mother appeared almost instantly, wiping her hands on her apron. "Lily, why didn't you say yes? He's a good man." Her father followed, brow furrowed. "Victor's been nothing but devoted. You could do far worse." Lily set the potatoes down a little harder than necessary. "I'm not interested." Her mother blinked, startled. "Not interested? He's wealthy, he's respectable, and he adores you." "He doesn't know me," Lily said quietly. "Not really." Her father crossed his arms. "He wants to marry you. That should count for something." "It counts for him," she replied. "Not for me." They exchanged a look, one of those silent, parental conversations she'd grown up watching. Worry, confusion, a hint of frustration. Her mother stepped closer. "Lily, you're the oldest. You should be thinking about your future." "I am," she said. "Then think about it with Victor," her father insisted. Lily looked past them, out the window, where the street stretched toward a horizon she couldn't see. She imagined fields instead of buildings, wind instead of smoke, a place where no one knew her as the dependable oldest daughter or the girl Victor Harrington had chosen. A place like Oklahoma. She didn't say any of that. Not yet. Instead, she picked up the basket again and returned to her work, her voice steady but firm. "My future isn't here." Chapter 2: The Date. Lily was brushing out her hair when her mother called to her, voice too bright to be innocent. "Lily, put on your blue dress, dear. We're going out to dinner." She frowned at the mirror. "Since when?" "Since tonight," her mother answered, already bustling away. Lily didn't buy it, but arguing would only drag things out. She slipped into the blue dress, Simple, modest, the one her mother always said made her look presentable, and tied her hair back. She was halfway to the kitchen when a knock sounded at the apartment door. Her mother froze. Her father cleared his throat, and Lily suddenly knew something was wrong. She opened the door. Victor Harrington stood there, smiling, like he'd just won a prize. Coat pressed, hair perfect, bouquet in hand. "Good evening, Lily." Her stomach dropped. "Victor? What are you?" Her father stepped in behind her, beaming. "I called his father this afternoon. Thought it was time you two had a proper evening together." Lily stared at him, stunned. "You what?" Her mother nudged her forward. "Go on, dear. Don't keep him waiting." Victor offered his arm, oblivious to the fury simmering behind her polite expression. She had no choice but to take it. The place Victor chose was the kind of establishment where the doorman wore white gloves and the chandeliers looked like they'd been stolen from a palace. The maitre d' greeted Victor by name and whisked them to a table draped in linen so crisp it practically crackled. A waiter poured water into crystal glasses. Another set down a basket of warm rolls that smelled like butter and rosemary. Victor leaned forward, eyes soft. "Order anything you like." She smiled sweetly, already plotting. "Anything? Of course." She opened the menu and nearly laughed. The prices were obscene. Perfect. She chose the most expensive entree, a pan-seared duck breast with blackberry reduction, truffle potatoes, and charred broccolini. She added a glass of the priciest wine. And when the waiter asked about dessert, she selected the chocolate soufflé that required a 20-minute preparation time. Victor looked thrilled. "You have exquisite taste," he said, voice low. "I love a woman who appreciates the finer things." She stabbed a roll in self-defense. The duck arrived glistening under a dark, glossy sauce. The aroma was rich, berries, wine, something earthy from the truffle. She took a bite and nearly groaned. It was delicious. Infuriatingly delicious. Victor watched her like she was the entertainment. "Good?" he asked. She swallowed. "It's fine." He laughed softly. "You don't have to pretend with me, Lily." She pretended harder. He talked through most of the meal, about business ventures, his family's shipping empire, the opera he wanted to take her to next week. She nodded when necessary, but her mind drifted to open fields, to wind that didn't smell like smoke, to a place where no one expected her to smile politely while being cornered into a future she didn't want. The soufflé arrived last, tall and delicate, dusted with powdered sugar. She ate it slowly out of spite. Victor looked like he might propose right there. The night air was cool, the city loud and restless. Victor walked close beside her, hands clasped behind his back like a gentleman in a painting. "I had a wonderful evening," he said softly. She opened her mouth to give a neutral reply, but he stepped closer, too close, and kissed her. Not forcefully, but without asking, without hesitation, without caring that she stood frozen beneath him. When he pulled back, he looked pleased. Hopeful. Certain. "Good night, Lily." She didn't answer. She went inside, shut the door, and marched straight to her room. The slam echoed through the apartment. She pressed her palms to her eyes, breath shaking with anger and humiliation. Her parents would keep pushing. Victor would keep assuming. The city would keep closing in. She needed out. Oklahoma wasn't a dream anymore. It was the only escape she had left. Chapter 3: The Milkman. Peter Washington pushed through the market door with 2 crates of milk balanced in his arms, tall enough that he had to duck the frame. Broad-shouldered, dark-haired, and flushed from the cold, he looked like someone who should have been carrying lumber, not glass bottles. "Morning," he said, breathless but friendly. He didn't make it 2 steps before the toe of his boot caught the edge of the rug. The crates jolted. Lily's heart jumped. 3 bottles slipped free and shattered. Across the floor, milk splashing in a white arc. Peter froze. "Oh shoot, sorry, I'm so sorry." He knelt immediately, hands hovering uselessly over the mess. First, I swear I'm not usually this human, Lily offered, already grabbing a rag and a dustpan. He huffed a laugh, embarrassed. Yeah, that. Up close, he was even more handsome, strong jaw, warm brown eyes, a smile that tugged up one corner first. He smelled faintly of cold air and hay, like he'd stepped out of somewhere. Real, not polished. I'm Peter, he said as they worked. Peter Washington. Lily, she replied. You're new. Brand new. Still figuring out how not to destroy the merchandise. You're doing fine, she said, brushing shards into the pan. Trust me, I've seen worse. He looked relieved, shoulders loosening. Thanks. I was worried I'd get fired on day 3. You won't, she said. Not for this. The bell over the door chimed. Victor Harrington strode in, immaculate. As always, coat perfect, hair perfect, expression perfectly smug. His gaze swept the scene, Lily kneeling beside a handsome delivery driver, and his mouth curled. Well, Victor said, looks like the help is having a rough morning. Peter stiffened, shoulders tightening. Again. Sorry, sir. I'll clean it up. Victor waved a dismissive hand. Just try not to drop the entire shipment next time. Lily's jaw locked. It was an accident. Victor barely glanced at her. Of course. But some people aren't cut out for delicate work. Peter's ears reddened. He stood quickly, gathering the remaining bottles. I'll bring the next crate in. He slipped out the door before Victor could say anything else. Lily rose slowly, dustpan in hand, anger simmering hot beneath her ribs. Victor stepped closer, smiling like nothing was wrong. I thought I'd stop by. See how you were after our lovely evening. I'm working, she said flatly. He didn't hear the edge in her voice. He never did. I'll come by later. He left with the same confident stride he'd arrived with. The moment the door shut, Lily exhaled sharply. Peter returned with the next crate, offering a tentative smile. Sorry about all that. You didn't do anything wrong, she said, more firmly than she intended. He blinked, surprised. Thanks. She took the crate from him there, fingers brushing for a brief second, warm, gentle, steady. And for the first time that day Lily felt something shift. Not a spark, not a revelation, just a quiet, certain reminder she was stuck. Chapter 4: The Family Dinner. Lily's parents started in on her the moment she walked through the door. Her mother stood with her arms crossed, flowers still dusting her sleeves. Victor stopped by. He said he'd like to take you to dinner tonight. Her father didn't bother softening it. He'll be here in 20 minutes. Go change. Lily froze. No. I'm not going. Her mother's eyebrows shot up. Lily Oliver, don't start. I'm not starting anything. I'm ending it. I don't want to see him. Her father stepped forward, voice rising. You're being ungrateful. Victor is a good man. He wants to marry you. I don't want to marry him. The room went still. Her siblings peeked around the corner, wide-eyed. Her mother's voice dropped to a warning whisper. Lower your tone. No, Lily said, grabbing her coat off the hook. I'm done being pushed. Where do you think you're going? Her father demanded. Anywhere but here. She shoved her arms into her coat and stormed down the stairs, ignoring her mother calling after her. The cold air slapped her cheeks as she stepped onto the street, but it felt better than the suffocating heat of the apartment. She walked fast, head down, heart pounding. Lily! She looked up. Peter Washington stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, hair tousled from the wind. He smiled, warm, surprised, and nothing like Victor's polished grin. You okay? He asked gently. Not really, she admitted. He nodded like he understood without needing details. I'm headed to dinner. My grandma's place. You're welcome to come if you want. She blinked. Dinner, like dinner? Yeah, he said with a small laugh. Food, family, noise. The usual. She hesitated only a second. Okay. Peter's grandmother lived in a cozy third-floor apartment that smelled like garlic, butter, and something roasting. The moment they stepped inside, Lily was swallowed by warmth, literal and emotional. Peter! An older woman exclaimed, pulling him into a hug before turning to Lily. And who is this lovely girl? This is Lily, Peter said, suddenly shy. She works at the market. Well, come in, Grandma said, ushering her toward the table. Your family tonight. The dining room was crowded with cousins, aunts, uncles, laughing, teasing, passing dishes across the table. Lily was given a seat between two of Peter's cousins who immediately introduced themselves and asked if she liked cornbread. The food was incredible. There was roasted chicken with crispy skin and herbs that perfumed the whole room. Mashed potatoes whipped with cream and butter until they were almost silky. Green beans cooked with onions and bacon. Sweet cornbread that crumbled perfectly. And a peach cobbler bubbling in a cast-iron dish, the crust golden and caramelized. Lily ate until she was full in a way she hadn't felt in years. Full of food, full of laughter, full of belonging. Peter kept glancing at her from across the table, smiling whenever she caught his eye. She learned little things about him between bites and stories. He was an only child. He had more cousins than he could count. He'd taken the milk delivery job temporarily. And he was planning to move out west. That last part made her fork pause midair. Out west? She asked. He shrugged, a little sheepish. Yeah. Just feels like something's calling me out there. Something better. Her heart thudded once hard. She didn't say anything then. Not with his grandmother passing her more potatoes and his cousins arguing about who cheated at cards last week, but the thought stuck. Peter insisted on walking her back. The night was cool, the street lamps glowing soft gold on the pavement. So, he said, hands in his pockets, did you have a good time? I had the best time, she said honestly. Your family is wonderful. They're loud, he said with a grin. They're real, she corrected. They walked a few more steps in comfortable silence before she asked, why out west? He looked up at the sky like he was searching for the right words. I don't know. It just feels right. Like there's something waiting for me. Something bigger than what I've got here. She swallowed. I know exactly what you mean. They reached her apartment step. She turned to him, heart pounding in a way that felt nothing like the dread Victor inspired. Peter. Yeah. She leaned up on her toes and kissed him, quick, soft, certain. He froze, eyes wide, then broke into the most stunned, delighted smile she'd ever seen. Wow, he breathed. She laughed, cheeks warm. Good night, Peter. Good night, Lily, he said, still smiling like he'd been handed the moon. She slipped inside, closing the door gently behind her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel trapped. She felt like something was beginning. Chapter 5. The walls are closing in. Lily woke to shouting. Her parents' voices ricocheted through the apartment, her mother sharp with worry, her father booming with anger. She didn't bother answering. She walked straight to her room, shut the door, and turned the lock. Their arguing dulled to a muffled roar behind the wood. She lay awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling, replaying Peter's smile, Victor's threats, her parents' expectations. By morning, she felt wrung out but strangely steady. She went to work early. Peter showed up right on time with the morning milk delivery. He looked tired, but when he saw her, his whole face softened. Hey, he said quietly. Hey. They worked side by side without talking much, but something warm and unspoken hummed between them. When noon came, Peter hesitated before asking, You eaten yet? She shook her head. Come with me, he said, almost shy. They walked to a small park a block away. Bare trees, a few benches, a fountain that hadn't run since fall. Peter handed her half a sandwich he'd packed, wrapped neatly in wax paper. They sat close, knees almost touching. I know it's soon, he said, staring at his hands. Too soon, probably. But I can't pretend I don't feel something. Her breath caught. He looked up, eyes steady. Lily, I'm in love with you. The world seemed to tilt. She didn't speak, couldn't. But she leaned in, and he met her halfway. The kiss was warm, certain, hungry in a way that made her forget the city around them. His hands cupped her face gently, like she was something precious. She kissed him back, heart pounding, breath unsteady. She opened her mouth to answer, and a fist slammed into Peter's jaw. He stumbled backward, hitting the ground hard. Victor stood over him, chest heaving, eyes blazing. I told you to stay away from her. Victor! Lily shouted, rushing to Peter's side. Victor grabbed her arm, hard. Get up. We're leaving. Let go of me. He didn't. He hauled her to her feet and marched her out of the park, ignoring her protests, ignoring Peter struggling to stand behind them. You're hurting me, she snapped. He loosened his grip but didn't release her. You're my fiancée, Lily. You don't run around kissing delivery boys. I'm not your fiancé. You will be, he said coldly. Our parents have already agreed. The wedding is in a month. She stopped walking. I don't love you. I never have. Victor's expression hardened into something sharp and unfamiliar. You'll change your mind. No, I won't. He didn't argue. He simply turned and walked away, leaving her shaking on the sidewalk. She didn't see Peter again. Not at lunch. Not during deliveries. Not even lingering outside the store. She worked the rest of the day in a fog, replaying the punch, the kiss, Victor's grip on her arm. When closing time came, she locked the door with trembling hands and climbed the stairs to the apartment. Her parents were waiting. Her mother's eyes were red. Her father's jaw was set. We met with the Harringtons, her mother said softly. It's settled. The wedding is arranged. Lily felt the floor tilt beneath her. No, she whispered. It's done, her father said. You'll thank us one day. She walked past them without another word, into her room, and shut the door. Then she sank onto her bed and cried, quietly at first, then harder, until her whole body shook. She cried for Peter. For herself. For the life being forced on her. For the one she wanted but didn't know how to reach. Chapter 6, Where is he? Lily didn't hear from Peter for 7 long days. Every morning she listened for the familiar rattle of the milk truck, hoping he'd step through the door with that warm half-smile. But each day, a different man came, older, gruffer, uninterested. On the 7th morning, she finally asked, Where's Peter? The usual driver. The man shrugged. No idea, miss. I'm just filling in. They told me to cover the route for a while. A while. The words sat heavy in her chest. She worked the rest of the day in a fog, barely tasting her lunch, barely hearing customers. When closing time came, she didn't go upstairs. She didn't want to face her parents, their plans, their certainty. Instead, she walked. The building looked the same, warm light behind the curtains, a pot of something simmering on a stove inside. She knocked softly. A woman answered. Not Grandma Washington. Younger, maybe in her 40s, eyes red and swollen. Can I help you? She asked, voice thin. I'm looking for Peter, Lily said. I'm a friend. The woman's face crumpled. Oh, sweetheart, you didn't hear. Lily's stomach dropped. Hear what? His grandmother passed away. 3 days ago. The hallway tilted. Oh no. I'm so sorry. She went peacefully, the woman said, wiping her eyes. Peter was with her. He hasn't been back since the funeral. Where is he? Lily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He had to go to New Jersey. Some family business to settle. He didn't say when he'd be back. Lily swallowed hard. Could you give him a message? Of course. Tell him, she hesitated, breath catching. Tell him I want to go west with him. The woman blinked. West. He'll understand, Lily said softly. The woman nodded, though confusion lingered in her eyes. I'll tell him. Thank you. Lily stepped back, hands trembling, and walked down the stairs into the cold evening air. The city felt louder than usual, trolleys clanging, people shouting, the wind cutting sharp between buildings. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself, but it didn't help. Peter was gone. His grandmother was gone. Her parents had arranged her future without asking. Victor believed he owned her. And she had just told a stranger she wanted to follow a man west, because it was the only thing that felt true. She reached the market steps and paused, staring up at the apartment windows glowing above the store. Chapter 7: It's Happening. Victor spent the next week in and out of the apartment like he already belonged there. He met with Lily's parents every evening, discussing flowers, venues, guest lists, menus, every detail of a wedding Lily had never agreed to. She sat quietly at the table, nodding when expected, answering when forced, her insides twisting tighter each day. By Friday she felt hollow. The store was slow that afternoon. Lily was sweeping near the front when the bell jingled and a boy of maybe 10 darted inside. He held a folded piece of paper in one hand. "You Lily?" he asked, out of breath. Her heart skipped. "Yes." He shoved the note into her palm and ran out before she could ask anything else. She unfolded it quickly, pulse hammering. "Lily, I love you. Marry me and let's go west together. Meet me in a week at the train station at 4 p.m. Love, Peter." Her breath caught. Her knees nearly gave out. She pressed the letter to her chest for one stunned second, then shoved it deep into her pocket just as the bell chimed again. Victor walked in, brushing snow from his coat. "There you are," he said warmly. "I've just spoken with your parents. We've decided to move the wedding up." Her stomach dropped. Move it up? To next Friday. He smiled like he'd given her a gift. No point in waiting. She forced her lips into something that resembled a smile. "Right. Next Friday." He kissed her hand, oblivious to the way she flinched. "You'll make a beautiful bride." She nodded, silent. Victor left, humming to himself. Lily stood alone behind the counter, fingers curled around the letter hidden in her pocket. Next Friday. The same day Peter wanted her at the train station. She looked toward the door Victor had just walked through, then toward the street where Peter had once smiled at her like she mattered. She already knew the truth. She wasn't marrying Victor. She was leaving New York. Chapter 8: It's Time to Go. Victor spent the next week in and out of the apartment like he already belonged there. He met with Lily's parents every evening, discussing flowers, venues, guest lists, menus, every detail of a wedding Lily had never agreed to. She sat quietly at the table, nodding when expected, answering when forced, her insides twisting tighter each day. By Friday she felt hollow. The store was slow that afternoon. Lily was sweeping near the front when the bell jingled and a boy of maybe 10 darted inside. He held a folded piece of paper in one hand. "You Lily?" he asked, out of breath. Her heart skipped. "Yes." He shoved the note into her palm and ran out before she could ask anything else. She unfolded it quickly, pulse hammering. "Lily, I love you. Marry me and let's go west together. Meet me in a week at the train station at 4 p.m. Love, Peter." Her breath caught. Her knees nearly gave out. She pressed the letter to her chest for one stunned second, then shoved it deep into her pocket just as the bell chimed again. Victor walked in, brushing snow from his coat. "There you are," he said warmly. "I've just spoken with your parents. We've decided to move the wedding up." Her stomach dropped. "Move it up? To next Friday." He smiled like he'd given her a gift. No point in waiting. She forced her lips into something that resembled a smile. "Right. Next Friday." He kissed her hand, oblivious to the way she flinched. "You'll make a beautiful bride." She nodded, silent. Victor left, humming to himself. Lily stood alone behind the counter, fingers curled around the letter hidden in her pocket. Next Friday. The same day Peter wanted her at the train station. She looked toward the door Victor had just walked through, then toward the street where Peter had once smiled at her like she mattered. She already knew the truth. She wasn't marrying Victor. She was leaving New York. Chapter 8. The next few days passed like someone else was living them. Lily smiled when she was supposed to, nodded when Victor talked about table linens, let her mother fuss with her hair and whisper, "I knew you'd come around, dear. I knew you just needed time." She didn't argue. She didn't correct her. She didn't say that every mention of the wedding made her stomach twist tighter. She just played along. But the act cracked the night her father pulled her aside. He stood in the hallway, hat in his hands, looking older than she'd ever seen him. "Lily," he said quietly, "I found something." Her heart lurched. "What?" He reached into his coat pocket and held out a folded piece of paper. Peter's letter. Lily's breath caught. "Dad, I can explain. You don't have to." His voice was soft, not angry. "I read it." She froze. He looked down at the letter, smoothing the crease with his thumb. "I've been so busy worrying about the store, about your mother, about doing what's expected. I didn't see you. Not really. Dad." He shook his head. "I didn't realize you were living a life that wasn't yours. I didn't realize how unhappy you were." Her eyes stung. He handed the letter back. "I won't say a word to your mother. Or to Victor's family. Or anyone." She swallowed hard. "Why?" "Because I love you," he said simply. "And because, good luck, sweetheart." It was the closest he'd ever come to giving her permission. Lily woke before dawn. The apartment was silent, her siblings asleep, her mother dreaming of wedding cakes, her father pretending not to know what was coming. She dressed quietly, pulled her small suitcase from under the bed, and paused at the doorway of her room. "Goodbye," she whispered in her mind. "I love you. But I can't stay." She slipped out the back stairwell and into the cold morning air. She spent most of the day in the library near the train station, tucked between shelves, pretending to read. Her suitcase sat at her feet. Her heart thudded with every passing hour. At 3 o'clock, she closed the book she hadn't absorbed a single word of and walked to the station. The platform was busy, travelers, porters, steam rising from the tracks. And then she saw him. Peter stood near the far end, suitcase in hand, looking like he'd been holding his breath for a week. When he spotted her, his whole face broke into relief. "Lily." She ran to him. He caught her in his arms, lifting her off the ground in a tight, breathless embrace. She buried her face in his shoulder, inhaling the familiar scent of cold air and something warm beneath it. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I came." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "Are you sure? This is everything. This is—" "I'm sure," she said. "I want to go west with you." His eyes softened, full of something she'd never been given in New York: freedom, hope, choice. The conductor called for boarding. Peter took her hand. They stepped onto the train together. As it pulled away from the station, New York shrinking behind them, Lily felt the weight she'd carried her whole life finally lift. Well, that's the story of Lily and Peter. I hope they live happily ever after, and Peter not only puts his dirty clothes in the hamper, but also puts the toilet seat down when he is done. Stay tuned for more stories from Evening Whispers of Love, and take care.